Dyson here, and in this video we're going to be talking about gap analysis. So the first part of this is going to be figuring out which competitors do we compare our product to so that we can gather this data and so that we can find the keywords that are missing from our listing. So I'm actually going to show you two different examples because these are the most common scenarios that you'll run into. So whenever you're performing the gap analysis, the idea behind this is to compare your product, which let's just assume this is ours, this first one, and you're going to compare that to another one of your competitors who is doing more revenue than you and ideally has higher or better keyword depth than you. So if you have 23% market depth here, or keyword depth, however you want to put it, then you would want someone who's higher. Now it doesn't always work out that way, so that's why I want to run through a couple examples. So, but the idea here is to say, okay, I'm going to compare my product to a competitor who is outranking me, and then my job is to find out what keywords are they outranking me for, and then I'm going to go target those and make sure that I can boost my sales. So in order to do that, we want to get rid of all of the other data down here, except for you and one competitor. So the first thing we got to figure out is, how do we pick? How do we know which one to target and which one we're going to compare to? So in this example, it's pretty straightforward, and I'll kind of walk you through what to look for and why. So generally speaking, we are going to be comparing a few different data points to determine if we are more credible than a competitor. So for a competitor where we have more credibility on our listing than they do, it stands to reason we should be selling more than they are because we have more credibility. Now, credibility looks like review count, it looks like your review rating, and it looks like your price. Generally speaking, there are other factors as well, like your actual listing, right? If your listing is like tip top and it looks great and your images are on point, your bullets are great, and then you compare it to a competitor who's got 2 images total and 4 of their bullets are the same, you would argue and be correct to say that you have much better or much more listing credibility than they do. So those are kind of the factors we're going to look at, but primarily what it comes down to is reviews, review rating, price, and then you're going to use these last 3 rows down here to determine if it's a good comparison or not. So let's just walk through this example. Let's say this is our brand, Le Rays, I believe is how it's pronounced, and we want to find out who is selling more than we are and who has more keyword depth than we do, or market depth. In other words, who is ranked for more keywords than we are. Now, this product is doing around 30K a month in revenue. So I look over here, all right, cool. I've got 3 competitors doing more than 30K in revenue. So these would be kind of my starting point. I would look here first. And the next thing I would look at is up here at the top and say, okay, let's look at review count. Well, review count is pretty much the same. Actually, I have more reviews than everybody else. And this one here, who's actually doing very similar revenue to me, has virtually no reviews in comparison, right? 335 compared to 2,600. This is a big discrepancy here. And then let's look at the rating. So I got 4.8 stars, 4.5, 4.8, 4.8. So comparatively, they're all identical except for this one. And that's actually a big drop off because 4.8 rating is 5 stars visible on your listing. 4.5 is only 4.5 stars visible on your listing. So it stands to reason for this competitor here, I have more reviews, I have a higher star rating, and my price is only $1 more. I'm pretty darn more credible than this person or this seller. So what I would do is say, okay, do they have more keyword or market depth than I do? And when I come down here and look, I'm ranked for 23% of the keywords and they're ranked for 17. So technically I have more market depth than they do. Now, what that indicates, if their revenue is 3 times higher than mine, yet they're ranked for fewer keywords, what that indicates to me is they are most likely either a big brand, which they could be, I'm not sure what this brand is. They're either a large brand and don't need to rank for as many keywords, or if it's not a big brand, it means that they are ranking better on page 1 than I am. So this market depth number, right? This is saying 23% of these 3,500 keywords are ranked in position 1 through 30. All right. So percentage of ranked keywords in position less than 30 out of the total results. So total results is 3,500. If you were to change the number here, then the number of, or the market depth percentage would also change. So, and then ranked keywords is just the actual number of keywords represented by this 23%. Okay. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing I notice is I could technically compare my listing to this one. And I would probably find some good data if I did that. Now, if I look over just one more, right? This seller is doing 70K, still, more than double what I'm actually selling for this particular product. Again, review count, quite similar. I actually have more reviews. Review rating is identical. Their sales are obviously a lot more, and their price is higher. So they have fewer reviews. We have the same rating. My price is $5 cheaper, and yet they're selling more than 2 times what I am. Let's look at their market depth, and it is double what mine is. This would be a great competitor to compare to. Now, assuming it's not a big brand, but in this case, it really wouldn't matter because, again, the market depth speaks for itself. So when it comes down to it, if I had to pick between this one or this one, I'm going to go with the one that has more market depth because that just means there's more keywords for me to find. In fact, they have 1,902 keywords they're ranked on page 1 for. I only have 817. I want to find out what these other 1,100 are. Okay, so what I would do is I would pick this competitor. And what I would do at that point is say, okay, well, I only want to compare my product to this one, which is Leaves and Trees Y. I'm not sure what that Y is for. And when we're going to come down here, and we still see everything else. So I want to omit everything else. I only want to compare my product, which we're assuming is Leray's, to Leaves and Trees, which looks like there's 2 of them. Oh, I rearranged this, so it's all a little wonky. But let's look at the ASIN here. So the ASIN is C4L4. So what I'm going to do is click on display. I'm going to leave mine and get rid of everything else that is not the one I'm comparing to. All right, there's only 2 left, mine and that C4L4 ASIN, okay? So once I get here, I can kind of look at the results again. And if we compare it again, if we're just comparing the keywords that we both rank for, then they have 67% market depth and I am around 30. Okay, so you see how this number changes based on the keywords that are displayed, which that changes based on the competitors that you leave connected or not. So I'm going to kind of stop here and I'm going to run through another example, but this is essentially the setup that we want to have. Now, looking into a different example where you happen to have more market depth than everyone else by kind of a lot. So in this case, just like our other examples and all the other videos, we're looking at the swaddle blanket. And let's look at review count, or let's look at revenue, right? Who's doing more revenue than we are? And we see, 64, 43, 33, 27, 29, 20, 26, 20. So a lot of these at the end are pretty close to where we're at. These 2 are a little bit higher. Okay. And these are definitely higher. So this one must have ran out of stock. So we could honestly get rid of this ASIN and it doesn't really belong here anyways. So, but what we're looking at, or what we can see is that, okay, when it comes to revenue, I kind of have my pick of the litter here. Let's look at review count. Who am I more credible than? Well, I have 4,800 reviews compared to everyone else's review count. That's a lot lower than that, with the exception of one brand here, which is a big name brand, so I'm not even going to really compare it to. And if I look at market depth, it's pretty low anyways. So, okay, when it comes to review count, I'm definitely more credible there. Rating, across the board, everyone's at 4.7 to 4.9. I happen to have a 4.8 rating, which means I have all 5 stars highlighted on the Amazon detail page. So I don't have to worry about credibility from a rating standpoint. I am credible. Pricing, 36. Everyone else is, these next 3 are pretty similar or slightly under or about $10 over. Again, big brand name, probably going to omit them. And so when we continue to look down further, again, we've already talked about revenue. Let's just go back to market depth, because at the end of the day, we want to pick somebody who's got more market depth than we do. But we have a problem. We're ranked for 46% of the keywords compared to these other competitors, right? The next best one is 30%. And, well, that means we rank for more keywords than they do. But like I said earlier, their revenue's higher. Their price point is actually lower, slightly lower. All right. And I also happen to know there's a $2 coupon on here. So technically our prices are the same. All right. But the revenue's 3 times higher. Their market depth is less. What that tells me is that this competitor here, Lifetree, they are actually ranking better on page 1 than I am for keywords that are more important, or rather driving more traffic. So when I say the keywords are more important, that means they're driving more traffic. Okay, so I think I'm going to compare myself to this Lifetree. Again, I'm one of the most credible listings by comparison. So I'm going to compare it to just the top seller in this particular case, right? In the last example, we didn't compare ourselves to the top seller. We went to kind of the second best here, and it was solely based upon the market depth, right? So when we're looking at this example, we're going to do the same thing. Come down to display. What was that? ASIN, THV, display, and it's first and second one. Makes it easy. So omit everything else. All right, and we're going to remove those competitors. And once we get to this point, we are ready to do our gap analysis evaluation. So I'll show you what to do next in the next video. But from here, again, the main premise is to take your product, compare it to one of your competitors where you ideally have more credibility than they do, and they have higher market depth than you do. In this case, the market depth actually doesn't really work out. But again, that's okay. We know that typically means they're ranked higher on page one than I am.